Hi there. I'm Frank Brill, editor of EnviroPolitics, and today on this beautiful sunny day, and this is not a fake background, folks. In order, to keep in touch with our topic today, solar energy in New Jersey, I thought we'd pick a nice bright spot. So I'm at a playground, and 5 minutes ago it was bedlam here, kids screaming, teenage girls, little kids. So I'm so glad that. They all went away. They all went home. So anyway,
we can just bottle that energy, right?
That's for sure. As you probably see, we have a guest today. Our guest is Lyle Rawlings, who is the president and CEO of Advanced Solar Projects. The reason I asked Lyle, to appear, is that Lyle is really an expert in solar in New Jersey. He has been around for a while. He has run his own companies, and he has participated with all kinds of clients too, small and large, in doing this. But I'll let him explain a little bit of that in a second. He's also, most importantly, been very involved with solar energy policy at the state level, dealing with legislation and regulators. And let me just set the stage here by saying that probably the most important players in this area, and it's a very complicated one, but we'll try to convince Lyle to break it down for you and use layman's terms wherever possible. But the primary players here are the solar industry, like Mr. Rawlings, the legislature, and that's primarily Senator Bob Smith, who's in charge of the Senate Energy and Environment Committee, and who has written almost all of the solar legislation that's in effect now. And he's working on a big bill, and that's what we're going to be talking about, and that's going to plot the path for solar in the future. Then you have the farm folks, the agricultural community, because for solar to work, we're all told by the experts that a lot of it or some of it has to go on farm fields, because there just isn't enough other places to put solar and have it work. And have it work means have it meet the goals of the governor's clean energy goals. Then the last, and you have the industry, I said, you have the legislature, and you have, of course, the environmentalists who always pop up in bills like this and have their own unique point of view and a helpful one. So Lyle, if you could do a real quick history of where the state's been with solar, why don't we start with that? And then we could go into this bill.
Yeah, well, I was thinking a lot about that history in the last few weeks because sometimes it can be really difficult for the solar industry to participate in these processes because as a group of us were just saying the other day, sometimes we feel like we're treated as the enemy. And a state that treats business as the enemy is not going to do very well in increasing business and economic growth and jobs. And that's what we're afraid can happen in New Jersey if we're stiff-armed, so to speak. And we heard a number of comments, not at that hearing that you just mentioned, but in recent hearings, that the solar industry can't be trusted. All we want is just more all the time, and just howling for more money, whether we need it or not. And I really understand that it's the job of regulators and of the legislature too to protect the citizens of this state and not just take the side of business all the time. And we appreciate that very much. But I think the solar industry in this case has been treated unfairly in saying that we've always asked for more. As Senator Smith said from the chairman's seat, MCA is one that for years and years was coming to the BPU and the Office of the Rate Counsel and the legislature and saying, you could pay us less. And we're going to be real happy about that. And sometimes it was saying there's a more efficient way to incentivize solar. Sometimes it was literally coming and saying, you've set a number and you set it too high and you're paying us too much. So please pay us less. And it's frustrating when, number one, we don't get credit for all those times when we have taken the lead in trying to reduce the state's incentive burden. and even more frustrating when we come with advice saying, please pay us less, and they don't. And so
that is kind of unusual.
yeah, very. And
Yeah.
so I think our reputation deserves a facelift, and that the relationship, particularly with the regulators, could be more cooperative, and we could achieve our goals of fighting climate change and building renewable energy and transforming the energy policy or the energy fact of the state of how we use energy, and do it at a lower cost to ratepayers. I think that's achievable, and it could happen better and faster if we could have a more cooperative relationship. On the other hand, you know, if they don't pay us enough to make investments achieve a reasonable rate of return, then those jobs are going to go away. That business growth is going to become business contraction, and the investment leaves the state. And that's what we're really, really worried about now, because after all those years of us, more than 15 years of us trying to change the framework for incentivizing solar to a more efficient, lower cost way of doing it, that has happened. And I have to say that the BPU, who creates these regulations, usually in response to legislation, did a great job in 2019 and 20 of bringing about a new and much more efficient framework for solar. And you know, the problem is the devil's in the details, as it often is. And some of the numbers were right, some of them were too high, some of them were too low, and we're looking to correct that. Now that bill that you talked about is taking that program from 2019 and 2020 and making it permanent. So this is going to last us through the year 2030, when we're supposed to be 50% renewable in the state. And again, the BPU has created a new and more comprehensive framework that I think was very well conceived. However, we think the numbers in this case are all too low, and we're concerned that the solar industry is going to crash as a result, and we've got a lot of data to prove it.
Wow. Well, you have, and you're also, I'm sure what plays into this is the competitive natures between states. You know, if your folks can't find work here because the rates aren't sufficient, they're going to go to another state, right?
Oh, absolutely. We're already doing that. And in fact, this year, even though we put 80% of our effort and 80% of the costs into New Jersey, 80% of our profit is coming from other states, and we can't ignore that for long. I love New Jersey. You know, I've been here for a long, long time. I've got deep roots here, but I've got to make sure that my business survives.
Right. Well, why could that be? How is it that other states? I mean, it must be their regulation or their legislation. What's the difference? If there's a key difference for you as someone who's offering these services, what would it be? And you can pick a state that you think is really doing it right.
Sure. Well, we think Massachusetts is doing it really well, and of all places, Maine has been a great place to do business in the last year. And honestly, Frank, it varies from time to time. You know, that's part of what makes it brutal to be in the solar business. We call it the solar coaster, because the policies change so much that, you know, sometimes it's like playing whack-a-mole, and you go to one state that's, you know, on fire, and then it closes down and you got to move to another state. I hate moving around like a vagabond like that, but sometimes you have to. So that's what we're looking to do. You know, we would like to keep our roots in New Jersey, along with all of the other businesses I represent. As you know, I'm founder and president of the Mid-Atlantic Solar and Storage Industries Association, and we've got 62 member businesses that are also trying to survive. Many of them, like us, are New Jersey homegrown small businesses, just trying to hang on. I would hope someday we could prosper and grow here. That's what we're looking for. So bottom line, like I said, we've got a good framework now. Now we've just got to get the numbers right, and we have to see. You named a number of stakeholders, but the ones that you didn't name that we're talking about now are the BPU, who enacts all of this, the Rate Council, and the governor's office.
Right.
And so this is going to be a test the next couple of weeks as to when they actually settle on the numbers. Are they serious about keeping us here in this state and getting economic growth and keeping the jobs, even growing them, or not? That's what we're going to find out.
Well, you're right. I did fail to mention those other parties, and of course they are extremely important. The BPU, for laymen, is the Board of Public Utilities. They're the folks that oversee all utilities, gas, electric, water, and in this case, the new utility on the block, solar. The Rate Council is an independent person, office, who is there. Her job is to look out for ratepayers, those of us who pay the utility bills. And she has been particularly difficult from your point of view in this process, especially this year or this month. Was she more supportive in the past, or has this been a rather consistent position?
It's been mostly consistent. Past rate councils have been more supportive, I would say. So that has been pretty difficult. And the BPU really is the key. What are they going to decide about preserving these solar markets that we have? And you mentioned the environmental.
Want this to work because, as you mentioned, he has set solar goals by 2050, right? That require what? What is he anticipating in terms of solar as part of that, of clean energy?
A big part. Solar is supposed to be 34% of the state's power by 2050. That's an enormous amount of solar power. And if solar doesn't grow in the next few years, that's just going to put more burden on the ensuing years, making it very hard to catch up. And is
that counting offshore? Could that
that's just solar. Offshore is in addition to that.
Okay.
And then there's class 1s, which mostly come from out of state.
Okay. Right. Oh,
yeah.
How much of a role are they playing right now? Out of state solar.
Out of state solar. Well, I'm not sure, Frank. I think class 1s, which are essentially all out of state, are somewhere around 8 or 10% now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
And solar is currently 5.5% or so.
Okay. Well, you're in a position that must keep you from sleeping well at night these days. But there are some positives here, as I saw at or when I watched the recording of the commission hearing, the committee meeting.
Yeah.
And that is that not all the other parties were always on board as much as they seem to be now. The agriculture community, and they have bought into the idea of giving over 5% of available good farmland for solar. And it sounds like, where in the past you had, big solar companies, small solar, sometimes were on different pages. It sounds like you're all coming together pretty much on this bill. I wonder if there was anybody else, but there was movement forward. And I think Senator Smith was.
I think it's I think it's important to dig into the weeds a little bit, because sometimes appearances can be deceiving. But part of the bill about the 5% prime farmland is that any given parcel cannot be more than 5% prime farm soils.
Okay, it's not an
And so that becomes so restrictive that many, if not most, projects are knocked down by that. And as you know, I testified and suggested maybe a way out that would make both sides happy, which is to say, if we can put PV on some farmland, but keep farming it, as a matter of fact, not just keep farming it, but take farmland that's not being farmed, that's lying fallow, and get it back into active farm production by doing what's called dual use agricultural photovoltaics. And if we do that in a way that's not just, raising hay or flowers or something like that, but actually growing crops for human consumption at a reasonable consumption rate, wouldn't that make the ag people happy and the land use people happy and the solar people happy? That's what we're hoping.
What kind of equipment are you using in those cases? You're not using big solar panels, are you? Or maybe you are.
Oh yeah, you're still using big solar panels. Depending on the crop, you may raise them higher in the air so that farming equipment can get under them. You may be widening the spaces so that spaces in between can accommodate farm equipment, or focusing on crops that are primarily manually harvested. And so a lot of what you see in this kind of, it's a new area, a whole lot of research still going on. It's just exploding right now, but it's one of the newest, hottest things. Some folks are raising blueberries or strawberries, squash, pumpkins, things like that are typically harvested by hand. And it seems to be working great. We still have to make sure that there's a reasonable amount of productivity in that soil, but it's looking really good. And then who would be against that? Because what happens is, once you plant those solar panels there, they're going to be there producing electricity for 35 years. And as you heard Jeff Tittle say in his testimony, that's 35 years in which they can't come in and do a warehouse or condos or whatever. You're guaranteeing that stays as farmland and is made productive, because the combined economy of making money off of electricity and off of crops at the same time makes it more economic to keep farming that land. And so we think that'll be a boost to family farmers in the state.
That sounds good. You'll need to work a little harder with the environmentalists, not the farmers, but the environmentalists, because they kept repeating the position they've taken forever, that it should be reduced to 1%.
Yeah, well, that was one organization saying that, but you also heard Jeff Tittle. He's not Sierra Club anymore. He's retired, but I think he's still. Yeah, I think he's Citizen Tittle. I think he still, voices the opinions of the Sierra Club. Yes. You heard Clean Water Action saying the same thing. And even though Doug O'Malley from Environment New Jersey could not be there, I know he feels the same way. So that's the three biggest membership organizations, environmental organizations in the state, and they're all on board with this concept.
All right. Okay, so you still have a way to go in the legislature, right? You have floor votes coming up.
Sure.
Any more? Have you finished with the assembly side?
No, it still has to get to the assembly, but the real action right now is at the BPU anyway. Okay. Most of that bill codifies what the BPU has already decided to do, and so they're doing it. And again, it all comes down to will they provide reasonable numbers that will keep us working.
Yeah, and I guess the legislature and the governor's office will look to the BPU to give them the way to go, because this is a complicated area, and I can't imagine any typical legislator outside of Senator Smith saying, "I know the way to do it."
Yeah, right. Well, this is going to have, I can't overstate the dramatic impact that this has on the businesses here in New Jersey. We're going to be laying off workers and either going out of business or going to other states if it goes bad, or hiring and growing if it goes right. And last year is a perfect example. I had explained that last year was the transition incentive, which was very, very well conceived as a framework, but some of the numbers were too high and some were too low. The too high numbers, well, those sectors took off. The too low numbers, those sectors declined or even crashed. So the residential businesses among my industry group's members suffered but hung on. The residential installers overall declined about 30% relative to the average of the last 4 years. Some companies, a couple of companies went out of business entirely. Others contracted by 70%. Most of them contracted by about 30% and hung on. But that's sort of the opposite direction to where we're supposed to be going in terms of growing renewables. We're not supposed to be going downward. We're supposed to be going upward, right?
Absolutely.
And the rest of the country, the residential sector actually boomed. It was a banner year for the rest of the country. So you can't really blame it on COVID. And
let
then,
me ask you about one other state, because we're sort of our readers are also a lot of them come from Pennsylvania, and Pennsylvania has not been a great example when it comes to solar, or quite frankly, anything other than fossil fuels. And from my point of view,
yeah.
Are they showing any progress at all?
Well, they're sure trying, and that's part of our territory of Mid-Atlantic SEA. Yeah, I mean, they're trying to expand their renewable portfolio and have a bigger goal and a bigger solar carve out than they've had in the past, and it's struggling. You know, Pennsylvania is different politically than New Jersey. New Jersey's got a trifecta, both houses of the legislature and the governor, all Democratic. Not so in Pennsylvania. They just have a Democratic governor, and it's a big coal state. So it's a little more tough sledding for us over there, but it's still very active. Large scale solar, they've got lots of land there in Pennsylvania, so large scale solar is making some headway, and you know, other projects are happening here and there. So we're very hopeful that we can get a bill passed there and get that state to take off.
Well, Lyle, you mentioned your organization. I introduced you in the very beginning as the owner of
Advanced
Solar Products, but you also founded an association that's been a big player in this and all of this policy stuff. Why don't you tell us who they are and who's the typical member?
Sure. Okay. Yeah, I think I had briefly mentioned them. That's the Yeah, it's okay. It's the Mid-Atlantic Solar and Storage Industries Association. Okay. And it changed its name, adding storage to the name a couple of years ago, but the organization was founded in 1997. And so I've been leading that ever since then. So, you know, 25 years plus. And it represents solar businesses in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Delaware. Okay. Most of them in New Jersey, and it ranges from small residential installers, kind of mom and pop businesses. Some of them have grown. Actually, some of the homegrown businesses, actually not necessarily members of our association, but two of the largest companies, residential solar companies in the country, are headquartered right here in New Jersey. As a matter of fact, the largest is headquartered right here in New Jersey. And then our membership also has large commercial installers like my company, and finance companies, attorneys, and a lot of solar developers. So we're very diverse. We have some international manufacturers that are members as well, including the largest PV manufacturer in the world. So very diverse membership.
Well, we really appreciate the time you've taken today to fill us in. I mean, you obviously are the expert, and I also want our listeners and readers to know that you're also, from my point of view, I've seen the committee meetings over the years, and I know that you're well respected by legislators as well. You are the expert among the industry folks, and I really appreciate the time you spent with us today. And since this is obviously an ongoing story, I hope to be back with you at some point where you can bring us up to speed on what's going on.
It's probably going to be pretty soon, Frank.
Very good.
But, yeah. Yeah, and great talking to you as always.
Okay, you too. Have a good day now. Have a nice sunny day.